Whether you are a long-time Pokemon fan who has been playing Pokemon games since its humble beginnings or a Pokemon rookie, the idea of a semi-open or open-world Pokemon game alone stands out as something special. Today, I want to revisit Pokemon Legends Arceus, a semi-open world game which represents a huge step forward for the Pokemon series. Due to its success, Arceus paved the way and set the standard for the open world experience we were given in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Pokemon Legends Arceus lets the player roam around the wilds, catching and battling Pokemon in their natural habitats, whilst gathering research data that will populate the very first Pokédex. The story is basically about your own character falling through a rift in the sky into the Pokemon world with amnesia about their origins. Having found a home within the Galaxy Core in Jubilife Village, it is also our duty to quell frenzied Pokemon lords that has been caused by the mysterious rift. The story and gameplay are refreshingly simple, and Arceus has managed to recapture the magic of Pokemon and reintroduce familiar basic principles of Pokemon training and battling that are omitted in more recent installments in the series. But there are some things you should know before embarking on your grand adventure. Hello, I'm Heather at Amalgamingle, and here are 5 things I wish I knew before playing Pokemon Legends Arceus. As new bright-eyed Pokemon adventurers, we are eager to get out there, Pokeballs in hand, ready to catch the best Pokemon. Some of us have been waiting 20 goddamn years for an open or semi-open world Pokemon game like Arceus. The last thing I wanted was to be a restless story and dialogue hostage, and this game went a little over the top with its exposition. The tutorial section of the game is lengthy because it assumes that the player is completely unfamiliar with Pokemon as a concept and explains every little thing, which is not uncommon for a Pokemon game. However, it was a little bit excessive in Arceus. In spite of this, I would highly recommend sticking to the main story whenever you reach a new area until you gain mounts specific for exploring that particular terrain. By all means, catch and battle Pokemon between point A and point B, and complete research tasks to gain money and points, but the areas are so huge that gaining an alternate means of traversal is a massive help when it comes to exploration. When I first played this game, I had no idea that I would be rewarded a mount so early in the story, and wanting to just be left alone to explore and catch Pokemon, I ignored the main story for a long time and explored the Obsidian Fieldlands primarily on foot. Although exploring on foot has its advantages, such as scouting for resources and enabling stealth and Pokemon discovery, if I would have known, I would have definitely waited to explore properly until I gained my first mount. Mounts make the player's life so much easier. There are several mounts you can get throughout the game that were annoyingly divulged in the game's pre-release trailer. I mean, seriously, game developers give away way too much in trailers these days, such obvious needless spoilers for their own game. Nevertheless, these mounts are bloody fantastic. You can summon Wire as your basic mount, ride over water on the back of Basculegion, or even fly through the sky being carried by Braviary. They handle so well and open the game up in new and interesting ways. For example, when you gain Basculegion, it is worth revisiting previous areas and seeing if remote islands are now accessible or if water Pokemon can be found in bodies of water, since you can throw Pokeballs whilst riding Basculegion. I do hope I'm saying these Pokemon names correctly. Like I say, I'm quite new to Pokemon. Anyways, when you gain Braviary, you should definitely revisit previous areas to explore high up places that could be home to different Pokemon. Unlocking new mounts is very exciting, so my first tip is to follow the main story every time you unlock a new area to gain the next mount that will be specific to the terrain you have to navigate and enables further exploration. Since research tasks have to be completed to increase your star ranking within the Galaxy Expedition team and populate the Pokédex, you will need a lot of Pokeballs and other essential resources required to complete research tasks. The research tasks are simple and consist of fulfilling certain conditions relating to witnessing different attacks and catching, evolving, feeding and battling each Pokemon a certain number of times. When you complete a research task and report your progress, you gain money and research points that go towards increasing your star ranking. Every time you gain a star, you are given a special reward, which is usually obedience from Pokemon up to a certain level and formulas for crafting better Pokeballs and potions. Since you can rest at camps to restore your Pokemon's health, like a Pokemon Center, you won't really need many potions or items that revive, but they are still handy to have. I would definitely stock up early on Vivichokes, pep up plants, Oran berries and medicinal leeks to craft health restoring potions and revives. The most important resources you will need are for crafting a variety of Pokeballs. You will quickly burn through an immense amount of Pokeballs in each area trying to fulfill research tasks that ask you to catch the same Pokemon at least 20 times. Having a large supply of natural resources required to craft different kinds of Pokeballs can be a saving grace, and all these materials can be found in the starting area of the Obsidian Fieldlands. Apricorns, tumblestones and iron chunks are needed for crafting the best Pokeball types you gain throughout the game. In my first playthrough, I always seemed to run out of Pokeballs and materials to create them, and consequently had to continually stop what I was doing to farm resources. I learned from this, and in my second playthrough the first thing I did was stock up on ingredients required to craft hundreds of Pokeballs. Iron chunks are harder to come by and are normally found in mountainous and coastal areas, but you will rack up a lot of money in the game fulfilling research tasks and looting inside Rift Distortions. Pokeball crafting ingredients, including iron chunks, are also sold by a merchant in town. Since these natural resources are free and readily available in each area, you can use your money on other things. You can increase the capacity of your satchel by speaking to a guy inside the Galaxy Hall in Jubilife Village, who will give you one additional slot each time you pay him an extortionate fee that increases each time. With storage space so easily accessible, I'm unsure why anyone would opt for this unless they were not aware of the free storage or ended up very rich. You can also spend money to customise your character, which I found to be quite an enjoyable element of the game. After creating your character at the start of the game, you can change certain elements in Jubilife Village, such as hair length, style and colour, and you can choose from lots of different outfits. Admittedly, the customisation options are not overwhelming, but new styles and colours can be unlocked by completing side quests. So yes, anyway, I went off on a big tangent then, but stocking up on essential Pokeball crafting materials early is definitely something that I wish I knew before I started playing Arceus. Note that you can have 999 units of each item in your storage, so go crazy! My next tip is to pay attention to weather conditions and the appearance of space-time distortions, because both mean the appearance of rarer Pokemon. Weather conditions dictating the appearance of certain Pokemon is not a new mechanic in Pokemon games. Different Pokemon can appear in different locations based on the current climate in the game, and which weather conditions each Pokemon prefers is specified in the Pokédex. Space-time distortions appear randomly but frequently, and they look like electrified purple domes. These distortions create the opportunity to catch rare Pokemon and loot valuable items that litter the area, such as golden nuggets that you can sell for 10,000. Bear in mind that the distortions dissipate after a fairly short amount of time, so what I do when I go into a space-time distortion is decide in advance whether or not I want to spend the time looting or catching rare Pokemon. Even though we were warned that the Pokemon inside these distortions are rare and dangerous, that is exactly the kind of motivation that we needed to pique our curiosity and have a glimpse inside one of these mysterious distortions. As long as you have Pokeballs with a higher catch rate than regular Pokeballs, there is absolutely no reason why you can't hide in patches of grass and go crazy catching loads of rare higher level Pokemon. If you are spotted, you can simply run away, or if you are brave enough, you can take them on in battle, whittle their health down to weaken them, and catch them this way. If you find you are in over your head, then don't worry, you can flee battles and exit the distortion anytime. This is also a good trick if you want to wait until their detection radar fades and resume your stealth approach. Furthermore, pay attention to the appearance of mass outbreaks in each region. These outbreaks are a great way to quickly complete research tasks on a specific Pokemon. Thankfully, these outbreaks often feature a gathering of specific Pokemon that are either harder to catch or uncommon. This entry is quite short, but it's definitely worth mentioning that paying attention to weather conditions, the mass outbreaks, and your bravery to venture inside space-time distortions will be greatly rewarded. Those familiar with the older Pokemon games will be well aware of the requirements needed to evolve specific Pokemon. But for people like me who are fairly new to Pokemon games, sometimes it really isn't obvious at all what you need to do. Since Amalgamingle co-creator Craig is a massive old school Pokemon fan, I often found myself asking for his help when it came to evolving Pokemon, because there are certain conditions that often need to be met. Some Pokemon require elemental stones to evolve, some need a high friendship level with the trainer, some merely need to level up, and some have very specific special requirements. Some need to be taken to specific locations, others need specific items, and some Pokemon that don't evolve at all because they only have a single form. So, if you don't have existing knowledge of Pokemon and evolutions, how are you supposed to know what requirements need to be met? The best example of the different kinds of evolutions is the Eevee evolutions, commonly known as evolutions. Based on what conditions have been met, Eevee can evolve into one of 8 different forms. Vaporeon, Jolteon, and Flareon need the corresponding elemental evolution stones. Leafeon and Glaceon need to either visit specific locations or be given evolution stones, and Espeon, Umbreon and Sylveon need a high enough friendship level and an additional requirement to be met. To get Espeon, you should evolve Eevee during the daytime, Umbreon at night time, and fairy moves must be equipped to get Sylveon. This is just a single Pokemon's evolutions, and that's a lot to remember, so credit to those who know all the evolution requirements off by heart, because there's little to suggest in the game what conditions need to be met. In my own playthrough, I wanted to get all of the evolutions, since Eevee is one of my favourite Pokemon. I soon struggled to get Umbreon, and I couldn't understand why. I had a high enough friendship level, tried evolving at night time, and I always ended up with Sylveon. Little did I know that even if Umbreon's conditions had been met, Eevee would still evolve into Sylveon if fairy moves were still equipped. Note that if you want to check a Pokemon's friendship level, then there is someone in Jubilife Village who can assess this for you. Another problem for me was retraining my Ni no Kuni brain. As a fan of Ni no Kuni Wrath of the White Witch, I found it hard to let go of the rules of metamorphosing familiars, which, although is a similar concept, is completely different. Familiars in Ni no Kuni have 3 metamorphic stages and can only be metamorphosed into its next form by levelling up and feeding it a jumbo drop. So basically Ni no Kuni is like Pokemon if the only conditions you need to fulfill were to participate in lots of battles for XP and give them all evolution stones. Ni no Kuni is simple, Pokemon is not. So that's just something to think about. And remember, Google is your friend. For my final tip, I want to talk about a few additional features that are easily overlooked but are very useful. The first is the Pokemon pastures. The pastures are basically somewhere to store the Pokemon you catch, and these pastures can be renamed and organised to your liking. Trust me, you can fall down a big hole doing this, and I spent way too much time organising my pastures. I had separate pastures for alphas, my favourites, separate pastures for different types. It's also handy to note that when you release Pokemon from your pasture, they give you a little gift, which is usually an item that can be used to increase a Pokemon's stats, such as HP, attack, speed, and defense effort levels. Let's face it, you need to catch a hell of a lot of the same Pokemon to fulfill research tasks, and at no point do you need 40 Bidoofs. You don't need to keep all the Pokemon you catch, so you can release a lot and gain loads of stat-raising gifts. Secondly, there are custom map markers you can place on the map to mark the locations of points of interest. Although you can't rename them to remind yourself why you placed them there, which is quite a shame, you do have the option of using different icons. I primarily used custom markers to map out the locations of alpha Pokemon that I wasn't ready to face yet so that I could return later. I also used map markers to indicate locations where natural resources were plentiful and places that prompted me to investigate but nothing happened. Once I figured out the meaning of this, I could return later and do what needed to be done. And finally, you will see lots of lost satchels appear on the world map that you can collect and return to its rightful owner to gain merit points that can be spent on unique items from a specific merchant in Jubilife Village. Although it is a good idea to collect as many lost satchels as you can when you see one nearby on the map, I would definitely advise against trying to get them all. As far as I can tell, they are auto-generated and infinitely spawn. So, there we have it. There's 5 things I wish I knew before playing Pokemon Legends Arceus. It really is a great game for series newcomers and Pokemon fans alike of all ages. Let me know in the comments what your favourite Pokemon are, and if you have any other useful tips that you think people should know about. There is a lot more that I could say about this game, but Pokemon games are about discovery, so just get out there and catch them all. I've been Heather at Amalgamingle, and thank you very much for watching.